Hello everyone, welcome back to Isadora. Hope you're having a good week. Okay, so it's already evening, right? And I really should not be recording at this time, but I just thought to get this out like really quickly. Like I said, I never really plan for the messages, so when the inspiration comes, I try to go ahead with it as soon as possible. Okay, so anyway, so today we're talking about speak up. That's today's topic. But before I continue, if you just join me, I will just say a Lord's Prayer very quickly. Again, I would explain my topics are based on science and spirituality, so sometimes I do need to say a quick prayer before we start. So here goes it. Okay, so our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thou is the kingdom, the power, the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Okay, so all right, so today's topic is called speak up. Like I said, I never really planned for these videos, but it was almost like, you know, it came to me as an inspiration, right? I mean, I was watching something I got and it just came to me as an inspiration, and I wanted to avoid this video, and I'll tell you why later. So I really wanted to avoid it, but because there's certain things I have to speak about, and I didn't really want to speak about it. So anyway, so I wanted to avoid the video, but it was like everywhere I turned to this week, all I could see was topics all I could see was speak up everywhere. I just saw it everywhere. So anyway, and even listening to certain things, they would end up eventually mentioning speak up or something. It was just everywhere I turned to, all I could hear was speak up. So I knew it was something I needed to talk about, even though I was trying to avoid it. So anyway, what this reminds me of is there was a time, I mean, back in my country, there was a bit of a protest, right? And well, it didn't end well. That's the bottom line of the protest. It didn't quite end well. But some people coined a term called speak up, and in my local dialect it's called like Sorosuke. Do you understand? And trust me, that joke was like the butt, that term was like the butt of every joke. Like every time people wanted to say something, everybody would say, oh yes, speak up. I mean, in my local dialect, you understand? And so it was really a joke. But you know what occurred to me was yeah, people joked about that term, but it's actually a very powerful word, and I'll tell you why. It's a very, very powerful word, speak up, because so many people have been silenced for so long. I mean, there was this Me Too movement thing, right? There was that Me Too movement thing, and people were actually speaking up about their abuse and everything. So there was that movement. But I mean, at the end of the day, that's for adults, isn't it? What about the kids? What about the youth? I'm talking about children from about 1 to teenage years to about even 18. What about them? What about them? Where is the voice for them? Who speaks for them? Because, you know, people that were doing the Me Too movement, those were adults that were comfortable enough to come out, obviously, and speak about the traumas they've been through in the past. What about the children that can't speak up about it? What about the youth? What about the people that don't have voices or don't have any means of speaking up? So I mean, this term, everybody thought it was a joke for so long, and people well, not like a joke, but people, it was something, it was a term people just used as like the butt of every joke kind of thing, you know. But it occurred to me just how powerful it was. Very powerful. So guys, I've had to use artificial lighting because it's getting really dark. Like I said, I'm shooting like way into the evening. Okay, anyway, so let me carry on. So like I was saying, speak up is very, very, it's quite powerful, because you know, the lack of being able to speak up, do you understand, is how narcissism most of the time is formed. Because like I've been saying, if anybody has been watching my videos, most of the time, I'm not saying all the time, narcissism is from a very young age, from when the kids are very young. I mean, some people, yes, some people maybe as adults, but very, very few. Most of 95% of the time is usually from a very young age, right? And what happens is, like, there are different types of narcissism, and I've explained this so many times, but I'm going to explain it again just based on this topic, right? So, for some kids, it's maybe okay, like I said, it starts from a very young age. For some people, it's from being less privileged, from lack. So what happens is these children have to develop very, very manipulative skills to be able to get what they want. Do you understand? So from a very young age, for some kids, it's being overprivileged. They get everything they want. So when they're not having their way, or when they're not getting what they want, they have to develop quite manipulative skills to be able to achieve what it is they want. So they would manipulate you, they will lie to you, they will do whatever it is they can do just to have their way. Do you understand? Because they are used to having their way. So it's those types of, so that's the type of narcissism, right? So these children grow up to be highly manipulative. They're liars, greedy. Do you understand? Because if you have to manipulate something out of somebody, do you understand? Obviously, most of the time it's out of greed. You have to lie to do that. So they become pathological liars. Everything they say is pretty much a lie. I mean, that's a certain type of narcissism. It's dangerous, but not as dangerous as this other type that I'm going to discuss. So the other type, I've talked about it so many times, and like I said, my topics are based on science and spirituality. So sometimes I do have to pull on the spiritual aspects of things. So this type of narcissism, it can only be looked at from a spiritual standpoint. Okay, so let me explain it. So these are children that maybe that have been abused at a very young age. I apologize, I'm having to talk about these things, but I mean, this is my topic at the end of the day. So like I was saying, who speaks up for these children? You know, it's easy for these children to grow up and have certain attributes, and everybody's like, oh, Ron, they're narcissists, they're this, they're that. But if they had a voice, that trauma would have been healed. They wouldn't have felt the need to grow up like that. They wouldn't have felt the need to think that is the way to behave. You understand? They wouldn't have. But you know what? Let me get into it. So anyway, these are children that have probably been abused. Now, when somebody is being abused, let's say rape, for example, most of the time rape victims, they feel shame, they feel anger, they feel fear. You know, those are all the things that come with that territory. So imagine all that on a little child that is being molested or that is being raped or whatever it is. They can't shout. Do you understand? They will shout, but something deeper is actually going on. What happens is that now you just bear with me, I want to explain it the best way I can, right? Because obviously this is not written down, so I have to go from the top of my head. Okay, so what happens in that instance is that when the person feels fear, anger, shame, and all those things. Now, this world, the entire world, is based on vibrations, right? Okay, but let's not even go into that, because you would really need to understand what vibrations is. Okay, but let me put it this way. So those things like anger, fear, shame, especially fear, one of the biggest things to be afraid of in life is actually fear, because you shouldn't fear. Now, these things, once you feel fear, these things are spirit. So let me pull, to prove that, let me pull on religious text, right? So the Bible says, I haven't given you a spirit of fear, which means fear is a spirit. Now, why fear as a spirit is so dangerous is because once you open the door to fear, fear has the ability to actually open the door to so many other terrible things, if that makes sense. It has the ability to open the door to so many other dangerous spirits, do you understand, that can come into your life, because the first way they need to have access is through fear. Do you understand? So that's the one that comes forward first of all to try to attach itself to you. Like, that's, do you understand? Once you accept it, once you welcome fear, it opens the doors to so many other things, if that makes any sense. So anyway, so now those things like fear, those spirits are of a very, very low vibration. They are of a lower level vibration. So let me explain it. So, like, imagine there's a giant and there's a dwarf, right? Now, the giant is like way, way, way bigger than the dwarf, right? So the dwarf pokes the giant. Because the giant is like really tiny. Because the dwarf is like really tiny, the giant can just kick the dwarf away, right? Okay. Now, the dwarf keeps poking the giant and keeps poking the giant. So, rather than kick the dwarf away, if the giant, because the giant is so much more bigger and higher, so if the giant looks down and reacts, do you understand, and looks down to say, oh, you stupid little dwarf, oh, look, you've been poking me, what has the dwarf has managed, I'm doing off the top of my head, so I might be a little so what the dwarf has done is managed to bring the giant down to their level. Do you understand? By way of reacting, the giant has actually come down to the dwarf's level. Do you get? So most of the time, before fear and all those things attack you, they need to first of all lower your vibrations. They need to bring you down to their level. Now, when the giant looks down and bends down and says, you little dwarf, what the dwarf can actually sucker punch the giant in the face, because naturally the giant is so big, so the dwarf can kick the giant's leg and the giant can kick it away. Do you understand? But if the giant comes down to the dwarf's level, the dwarf now has a chance to like sucker punch the giant in the face. Do you understand? So what happens is that before lower level spirits and all this demonic stuff, like demons and all those things, do you understand, they are of they are of the low vibration. So before they're able to actually attack or attach themselves to you, they have to first of all bring you down to their level. Now, how do they bring you down? Is make you feel fear, anger. So all those things are of low vibration. So when someone does something to you, that's why they say you should not react to people. You should not really get angry. Anger is bad or whatever it is. Yes, it is, because what it does is it first of all brings you down. Like they say, anger destroys things. If you don't get angry, that stuff won't be destroyed. Now, for that stuff to be destroyed, anger needs to bring you down to their level before they actually have access to you, before they're able to destroy anything. If that makes any sense. Yeah. So what happens is the dwarf manages to bring the giant to its level before it sucker punches the giant, right? So when a child is being abused, now, because they're really young, they don't have the emotional control to say, okay, I can either feel this way or I can't feel that way. Whether it's a child or an adult, any rape victim obviously is feeling fear, is feeling fear, is feeling, do you understand? It's feeling a certain way, obviously. So now let's go back to the children. So like when a kid is being abused, right, the child feels fear, anger, but they can't really express what they're feeling. Do you understand? So they're feeling it on a spiritual level kind of thing. I mean, the child can be crying or shouting or whatever it is, but spiritually it's like the child is making a distress call. Now, at that level of anger, fear, that child's vibration is so low that if it's making a distress call, the only sort of spirit or whatever it can call for help are the lower level ones. Do you understand? So they come in and attach themselves to the child, if that makes any sense. Remember the story of the giant coming down to, so because the child's vibration is so low at that point, so they're making a distress call to lower level, do you understand, lower level beings or whatever, or spirits or whatever it is. So that's how, remember, I haven't given you a spirit of fear because it is a spirit. Do you understand? So those are the things that come in and attack themselves to the child. Now imagine, so as the child grows, these entities are attached to the child. So these entities can be rage. Do you understand? It can be anger, extreme anger, can be whatever it is. It's like a wound. Do you understand? A wound that is not treated. As the child grows, the wound gets untreated, it gets bigger, it gets deeper, if that makes any sense. Do you understand? So this trauma is unhealed. Do you understand? These spirits get more wicked, they get more evil, they get more, and they're attached to this child. So it can be, then you see an adult that just has extreme rage and somebody says something and they pick up a gun and they shoot the person just out of anger. Do you understand? So this is how most of the time narcissism is formed. Like I said, there are other types of narcissism that comes from either lack or being overprivileged. Then there's the spiritual side of it as well. Do you understand? So that's how most of the time narcissism is formed. Anyway, sorry. So these children grow up and become really evil. They are pathological liars. These are doors that have been opened, do you understand, from when they were young, that these are spirits that have attached themselves to these kids, do you understand, from a very young age, and they can't help it. It's just, so what I'm saying is, I mean, if you, including myself, if you go on the internet, you see all sorts about narcissism. Yes, I know that some people have already gone through that stage and they are full blown now. Do you understand? Who speaks for these children? Who is the voice for these children? Because except they speak up, if they don't speak up, they grow up and become something else. Do you understand? They grow up with such hatred, with such anger towards other people, and they feel that, okay, other people must experience the pain they've experienced as a child, and they inflict pain on other innocent people that weren't privy to the trauma they went through. We can blame them, or we can actually ask ourselves, who is the voice for these children? If they've been able to speak up at that time, the love of their parents, the love of the people they are speaking to, they would have been able to talk about it. They would have been able to get the right psychological help. They would have been able to get the right amount of love, the right amount of listening ear. Do you understand? That wounds, that trauma, that would have been a healing process for them. But because they were unable to speak up, because there's no voice for them, do you understand? That's why they've grown up to be narcissists or psychopaths or sociopaths or whatever it is you might call it, because there was no voice. Now, something happened to me, and this was what I was really avoiding to talk about. But I mean, let's talk about it. It wasn't like it was so grave, but I mean, let's talk about it. So at this point I was about maybe 15 or 16. This was right before I went off to college. Now I knew I was going to be shipped off to college, but at the same time, like I've always said, my parents, especially my mom, like really strict. I've lived a very sheltered life, right? I wasn't really allowed to go out per se or have friends like that or whatever it is. So yeah, very sheltered life. So my way of going out, I mean, at the time they used to be like all the summer schools and everything. So during the holidays, like I went to a boarding school, during the holidays I would go to like a summer school. That way you can get to make friends. Sometimes we would have all planned the summer school we're going to. I mean, summer school used to be the eat stuff back then. So my way of actually socializing was going to summer schools and everything. So anyway, so this particular one, it wasn't so much like a summer school, it was for an exam, right? It was so, and the tutor, so there was like a seminar, but there was like an exam or whatever. The tutor was like a celebrity kind of man. He had all these things on TV. It was educational, obviously, but he had like all those programs on TV and everything. And it was mostly like English language, which I totally loved. Do you understand? So when I started to attend that summer school, it wasn't like the usual summer school. It was just based on certain subjects, and it was supposed to be for an exam, which I just wanted to take. Like I said, it was the only way I could have a social life. I just wanted to take the exams anyway, but I knew I was going off to college and I didn't really need it, but just in case, I just wanted that certificate. So I started to attend the summer school, and I was like the teacher's pet, right? Because I would always banter this teacher. I would always banter him, like banter with him. Do you understand? I would always banter with him, like, because I mean, I loved his topics. Do you understand? So I would always, especially like English language, so we would always go back and forth. It was fun. So to the day of the exams and the seminar, so in the morning we're reading the exams and everything, and so the afternoon it was just like, okay, it was kind of like reveal to you how well you've done in the exams. I mean, it wasn't like the results were ready or anything, so everybody just kind of sat around. So that day, like, normally the summer school is like maybe, let's say excuse me, like 50 to 100 people, right? So this particular day was like maybe 1,000 people. Do you understand? So anyway, so the seminar started in the afternoon. The exams were in the morning, so the seminar started in the afternoon. Like I said, I've done my exams. The rest of it was just like play to me. Do you understand? Like, it wasn't like it was so important. It was my way of having a social life. But I'd written my exams anyway. So during the seminar, I mean, so many people were there. People were just like hanging out everywhere and everything. So I walked down the road. Like, I didn't really know the area that well, but I walked down the road to get something. And then on my way back, like, there was not some sort of, I don't know what happened. It was like a fight. It was like a street fight or whatever it is. So people started running helter skelter, and so people had machetes, and so people had all sorts of things. People were just running. So I kind of like just ran. I just ran. Like I said, I didn't know the area very well. I was about 15 or 16, I can't remember. So I just ran. And I ran into like one or two streets, and I was trying to find my way back. So all of a sudden, I saw a car coming. I didn't recognize the car, like it was my tutor. Do you understand? So I recognized the car. So I kind of like almost tried to flag him down, but he slowed down anyway and said, oh. And I'm like, okay, there's a fight and everything. He said, yeah, that's why he's trying to leave the vicinity. That, you know what, get into the car. Like, do you understand? I don't even, honestly, to be honest, I don't remember per se what happened. But I'm thinking that was what happened, I guess. So somehow I got into the car. Now, I thought I was running away from the pandemonium at the back at the seminar. What I didn't realize was the people that started the fight were actually after him. So rather than running away from it, I just ran bang in the middle of the whole thing by getting into that car. So anyway, so as I got into the car, he just sped off like, oh, this, that, do you understand? And then he got to one street and he spoke to like two guys or whatever it is, and then he sped off again. And at this time I was like really panicking, like, okay, me thinking that there was like a major fight even at the seminar, not realizing that the person they were after was this man. So the seminar had already, do you understand, finished, and people had already gone home. Now my mom was supposed to come and pick me up, right? And trust me, if she didn't find me there, like literally she would chop off my head. I'm not even kidding. So at this point, you know, we're driving around and everything. I didn't understand what was going on. I honestly thought there was like a major fight going on at the seminar, and that was what we're trying to avoid or whatever, not realizing they were actually after this person. So I was sitting in the car and I'm like, oh, still panicking in the car, like what's going on. But I thought I was safe by being in that car, not realizing I was right in the middle of it. So anyway, like I said, this was like almost evening time, so it was getting a bit dark, and I'm like, okay, I kind of have to go back because my mom will be looking for me. It's like, oh, we can't go back now. So I'm like, okay. Anyway, in my head, I'm thinking, okay, by the time my mom gets there, she would realize that there was a fight, not realizing that there was nothing going on anymore. So she would realize that there's a fight. She would realize, do you understand? So this was my consolation, right? Otherwise, I would have passed out in the car. So anyway, it was now getting really dark. So after a while, he now drove somewhere and then he parked. By this time, it was like dark. So I'm like, I'm just really panicking. Like, okay, I really need to get back. I don't know how am I going to get home. This, that. Oh, I shouldn't have come for this. I should have just gone home. I shouldn't have, blah, blah, blah. He wasn't even listening to me at this point. So as he parked and trying to look around, like two guys knocked on his window and another one came towards my window on the passenger side. And then he wound down. And as he wound down, they just started to hit him. Like, next thing, they opened the car door. Oh my god, this was like a nightmare, right? They opened the car door and they dragged him out, and they had machetes, they had all sorts of knives, blah 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 blah. Oh my god, at that point in my head I'm like, okay, so he's been attacked, obviously I'm next. I really honestly thought I was gonna die. I honestly thought I was gonna die. Now, so the attack team was on the floor. They had kicked him. The next thing, they threw him into the car at the back seat, right? And they got into the car, and this is me still sitting there like so they got into the car and they drove off. Where they drove to, I honestly don't know. So they just drove to another place, and then they stopped and everything, and then they picked some other guys, and as the other people were trying to come into the car, one of them said to me, get to the back. I mean, the one on driver says just said to me, get to the back. Now I had like a top. It was like a short dress, to be honest, but I wore a wrap skirt on top of it, right? So I wore a wrap skirt on top of it. So it was like a really short dress, but I couldn't wear that dress because I was going for an exam. So I wore a wrap skirt on top of it. So as I was able, when they said get to the back, obviously I wasn't going to get down from the car. They just wanted me to go through the middle of the car to get to the back seat. So as I was going, the rope of my wrap skirt kind of like pulled on the brake or whatever it is. So obviously that pulled, but I held it, do you understand? And I went to the back. So there was not like maybe like 3 or 4 guys in the car or whatever it is. And then this other dude, it was just messy. I don't remember. So we got to a place. I was crying at this point. I was shaking and everything. So we got to a place and they dragged him down. They all got down, like 4 guys or 3 guys, or I can't remember. So they dragged him down and they left me alone in the car, kind of thing. It was in the middle of nowhere. It was dark. I was sitting alone in the car. I was crying. I was scared. And then one of them came back. So one of them came back, right? And so he came back. And then he came to the car and he was like, oh yeah. So I realized what he waited for the other to go. So he thought he could take advantage. So he wanted to take advantage. He was thinking, obviously, I don't even want to say it out. You know what? He felt like he could rape me. I mean, that was the plan. So the others had gone there, dragged the other guy, and they thought, okay, let me use this opportunity to take advantage. Now, the only reason why he didn't succeed, I'll tell you why. Like I said, my mom's like super strict, right? Super duper strict. So now the thing is, so he came back and he wanted, okay, obviously, because when I tried to get to the back, the rope of my skirt, so I hadn't tied it back. I mean, I just held my skirt and I was crying. So he was like, oh yeah. So I was trying to struggle with my skirts and I held it tight. Like, I was kicking, I was screaming. And like I said, the only reason why he wasn't able to, I thought about several things. Like, okay, first of all, by the time I get home, it's like second death. Literally, my mom's gonna kill me. I knew it, like she's gonna chop off my head. Now, how is it possible that I would stay here, you will drape me, and then I'll go home and then go and die again? No, it's not gonna happen. So I was actually literally saying to the guy, like, I thought he had a knife or a machete or something, I can't remember. So I was saying to the guy, you're gonna have to kill me. I mean, if you want to rape me, you have to kill me. I was young, but I was ready. At that point, I told myself, I thought he was going to hurt me anyway, so what's the point? Don't rape me first and then hurt me. You might as well hurt me before you. Do you understand? So for you to have your way with me, you might as well kill me first. That's because I wasn't going to die twice. I'm not going to suffer that and then go home and suffer something else. No, it's not going to happen. So I was kicking and screaming and I told him, you're going to have to kill me. I'm a virgin. Do you understand? You're going to have to kill me. If you want to do that, you're going to have to kill me. So I was kicking and screaming and biting. I honestly, how he didn't stab me, how he didn't cut me or something, I have zero clue. He didn't. He was just struggling with me and trying to. I did not. So at some point, I can't remember if he had a phone or a camera or something. So he had pretended to take, okay, at that point I had just my top, like it was like my dress on, and he had been struggling with my skirt. So he pretended to take a picture or something. I can't remember. Maybe it was a camera, maybe it was a phone. And then he said, oh, he had taken a picture, and he's like, you know what, that he was gonna paste it everywhere on my street, that the next day I had to bring him money or something, obviously, since he couldn't rape me, that I should go and take my parents' money, and I should bring him money, and this, otherwise, you know, whenever I step out, he said to me, oh, I know who your father is, I know where you live. It was just crazy. I mean, I'm talking about him now because it was such a long time, but I mean, this is the first time I'm ever really telling this story. So he was like, oh, I know who your father is. I would print out those pictures and paste it everywhere in your street if you don't bring me that money, and if you don't do it anytime you step out of your house, I will shoot you. I honestly believe he was going to do it. So as he said that, he rushed out of the car. I think maybe he realized that the others were, as he rushed out of the car, like a few seconds later, I just saw the others like coming. Do you understand? So he rushed out of the car or whatever it is and went somewhere. But it was really dark. At this point, I was literally frozen. I was a child. I was like 15 or 16. Do you understand? I was just like frozen there, like, what just happened? I didn't understand it. How he didn't hurt me, how he didn't kill me. Most of all, he didn't rape me. So I'm like, okay. But at the same time, he had threatened to print out some pictures and paste it everywhere on my street. He knew who my father was, and if I didn't bring him money, he was going to shoot me. So anyway, these other people came, and as soon as they came, the guy that was driving initially turned around and said to me, "Did he touch you?" And I said no. Obviously, I could have told him the truth. I wasn't sure because they were the same group. How did I not know if it was? I didn't know if it was a setup. I didn't know if the whole thing was a setup. Why was I picked up in the first place? Why was I there in the first place? Why? Do you understand the whole thing? I was just confused. And then this one is telling me that he knew who my father was. So I'm like, I don't know if it's a setup. I don't know if the whole thing was a setup. I don't know if they were going to kill me somewhere. I didn't know what was going on. So anyway, they got back into the car. And at this point, I was really crying, like, just take me home if you can. I was just hoping. I wasn't sure if I was ever going to get home again. So eventually, they're like, okay, they're going to take me home. So they took me home. So when they got to my house, I mean, now I had another ordeal to go and deal with. Having to deal with the fact that, first of all, I knew my parents would have been looking for me. They would have been panicking. So if it was any other member of my family, like if it was any of my siblings, right, it won't be that bad. But for me, I was like the black sheep of the family, right? They wouldn't have realized that something bad was genuinely going on. They would have thought, oh, maybe she went out with her friends or something. Do you understand? That's what my parents would have thought. They wouldn't have realized what I actually went through. Like I said, the black sheep of the family. So obviously they would have thought about the worst. So I told that tutor man, since it was all torn up and bloody, I was like, okay, you go in and try to explain to my parents what had happened. So he went through the gate, he went into the house, and I must have seen my mom. So obviously she was panicking. Oh, where's my daughter? Where's my daughter? Oh, I have information about your daughter. Okay, she's outside. Okay, she's safe. And then all of a sudden the panic turned into anger. So she just turned around and said, oh, so you kidnapped my child. She didn't even look at him to see how bloody he was, or if his clothes were torn. You kidnapped my daughter, you were a kidnapper. Da, da, da. So the guy ran out of my house. And then he came back into the car and said, well, I'm sorry, you're going to have to go inside yourself. Like, your mother wants to kill me. And I'm like, okay, I am dead. I'm so dead. So I walked into the house and everything. And I was about to explain, I don't remember. I think I was met with like all sort of like slaps and whatnot. And because, like I said, if it was any other person, they would have thought something bad happened. But because it's me, they kind of felt like the black sheep of the family. She probably just went out with her friends. I was taking the piece, not realizing. So I tried to explain to my mom what happened, but she never listened. Like I said, through no fault of hers. If it was any other person, she would have. But with me, she thought I was out with my friends and everything. So she was really upset. I was grounded for like a year, which was great because obviously somebody had threatened me that once I stepped out of my house, they would shoot me. So she said, oh, you're grounded. I didn't know how much longer I had before I went to college, so I didn't care. So, I mean, for the next week, so obviously by the time my dad came in as well, everybody was angry with me. For like a week, I was like an outcast in the house. But that wasn't really my problem. I'd experienced something that I couldn't really talk to anyone about. I was scared stiff every time I woke up, like my heart was in my mouth, because I'm thinking, this person, I haven't taken the money they asked me to take, right? And in my head, I'm thinking, if I take it once, I might as well keep taking it all the time. Besides, the address he gave me, I don't even remember where he told me to bring it to anyway. So, you know, so every day I would get up, and obviously, because I wasn't even allowed to go anywhere near the gate, I would get up and look through my room or through the balcony to see if my pictures were on the road or whatever it is. I could not walk. I could not even, like, my house is a house, right? Then there's the garden or there's a yard or whatever. So you have to take a long walk before you actually get to the gate. Do you understand? I could not take a walk in the garden to even get to the gate. I couldn't do it because I was scared that every time, once I got to the gate, I would get shot. Now, fast forward to when we're supposed to get our results, right? So the day I went to get my results, obviously because my parents didn't know what was going on, I was scared stiff to go and get my results. They thought maybe, oh, I felt like I didn't do well. That's why they didn't understand that I was afraid that I had to go to the same center. So I went there, and as soon as I got there, I was looking for people so that I could stand with people. I won't stand by myself. But I felt like the whole world knew what happened. I felt like everybody was watching me. But the thing is, I didn't have a voice. I was so angry with my parents. It wasn't their fault. Like I said, they thought because it was me, I was probably out with friends or whatever. It wasn't their fault. But I remember being so angry, but I couldn't say anything. I was so angry with my parents because in my mind I was thinking, Nobody listened to me. I'd been through this traumatic experience. I was afraid and nobody knew. Nobody. So thank God it didn't actually get to the rape part. I never was really. But what about those children? What about those ones that were actually abused? Who speaks up for them? I didn't have anyone to speak up for me. I was afraid. I was living in so much fear at the time. So I was so happy to finally just be shipped off to college. But that's me. I was lucky. What about the people that were not so lucky? And you see, today, I mean, I'm not a parent, so I can't really address parents, obviously. But at the same time, you know, it's good to, and I don't blame parents, because sometimes, you know, it's hard enough. It's hard enough trying to give your family the good life. Do you understand? From school fees to extracurricular activities so parents are busy. They have so many things they're thinking about. So even when you see a child that is moody, do you understand? You're just thinking, well, please just just get off for now. Like, I can't deal with this now. I've got to pay your school fees. I've got to put food on the table. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. I've got to do that. Do you understand? So there's so much more. There's so much more. There's so much to worry about. So sometimes parents tend to overlook it when the children are acting a bit funny or when they're being moody. Do you understand? Like, it's true, no fault of theirs. I mean, you can't really blame anybody, right? You can't really blame anybody, but there's got to be a voice. There's got to be another way out, right? I don't know if it's just me, because sometimes, I mean, now I understand why I've had to experience that. Because it is so easy to say, oh, narcissism. It's so easy to say this. But if there's children, it's like a wound. It's a trauma. Do you understand? It's a trauma they've experienced at a young age. If they were able to speak up or speak to somebody, or there was somebody that they could speak to, these children that trauma would have been healed. It's like a wound. It's like an untreated wound. Do you understand? That wound would have been healed. They wouldn't have grown up to be narcissists or sociopaths or psychopaths or whatever it is. Most of the time, this thing starts from a very young age. So there's got to be an outlet. There's got to be a way where these children can speak comfortably, where they can be relaxed. They will feel heard. There's got to be something. I don't know if it's all in my head, but I mean, it's an experience I had as well. And it was just like 2 days ago, and it just came to my mind, and it was like, I remember the anger I felt. I remember. But thank God, nothing really happened to me. Mine was just basically fear. But the truth is, if something had happened and there was no one to talk to, even though nothing happened, I was living in fear. But there was no one to talk to. I couldn't tell anybody. I couldn't. No one even listened to me, because like I said, they thought I was out with friends or whatever it is. There's got to be something. The best thing anyone can do for themselves is to speak up. I'm not saying tell the whole world what you've been through, but there's got to be someone you trust enough to be able to speak to. Anyway, I do love you all. Have a beautiful, blessed week. It was something that kind of choked me and I really needed to talk about. So have a blessed week. Stay blessed. Have a peaceful, wonderful week ahead. Namaste. Love you all. Peace.